Hi, everybody. How are you all today? I hope everybody's doing okay. I have some questions that I was going to answer before we started everything up. Judy had a question and Natalie had a question, so I thought I would address those first before we started. If I seem a little bit subdued today, I had a little bad news in between this morning's show and this afternoon show, so it's not a good day. So, hi, Priscilla. Hi, Amanda. Good to see you all here. I hope you all are doing well. How's the weather there in Minnesota? Glad I'm not there. Hey, Karen, you're back in Buffalo, huh? Wow, y'all been on a whirlwind trip then. So, Judy asked a question about hiding items and basically building something in Canvas Workspace and sending it to your scan and cut. How can you do that in different layers? And so I thought I would address that one first, and then I'll address the multi-part stippling decorative fill question. So you are gone for a whole month. So, all right, guys. So let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen over here. Here we go. Yeah, Penny, it's sad. It's very upsetting today. So we're just going to power through and continue on. So, hey, Joyce, good to see you here from Arkansas. Okay, good to see you, Susan. Now, Judy, how do you build something in layers? So let's just go back over what I did this morning. So let's say I bring in this oval, and I'm not going to go real detailed into exactly what I did this morning, but you'll get the idea. So I'm going to grab my circle tool here, and I'm going to put me a circle there and make it smaller and duplicate that and move it over to the side. I'm not going to go through all the finer points that I did this morning. We're just going to kind of make those at a little bit further apart. So let's say we want those. Let's try 1.75. We'll see how good I did as far as drawing this time. Let's horizontally take them. I need to take them down a little bit. Oops, not quite that far. Let's go with 1.6. Must not have made it the same size. All right, so let's right mouse click and choose group. And then I'm going to center those elements on my oval. Okay. Like I said, I'm not going to go through the whole shebang that I did this morning, but let's say we want to make something different for our napkin holders. I'm going to shrink this guy down and, oops, put him in here, and we would have him draw. So let's change that to draw. So now we've got a design built kind of, but I want to send them in two separate parts. I don't want to send my drawing file at the same time that I send my cutting file. How would I do that? All right, I would go into my layers menu and I would hide what I don't want to send first. Usually I draw first and then cut. So if that's what I was planning on doing, I would do my drawing first and then my cutting. So I would hide everything that's not cutting. Go up to my file pull down menu, choose export transfer FCM file, and transfer that via the internet, or export that FCM file by itself. Okay. If I've done it this way, then I would go over to my machine, I would draw it, come back over here after it's done, unhide the elements that I hid, hide the one that I didn't, and do the same thing. If I exported them all to a USB, I could have done that right at one time and taken the USB stick at the same time. Let's see if I can speak. Does that make sense? I'm going to come back here and see. Okay, so hi, June. Good to see you here. Guys, I'm glad everybody's to join me today. Like I said, I'm a little off my game this afternoon, but we will power through and get on with it. So that is how you basically do different layers, and that's how you send things to where it's all still going to line up, so it would be in the same space if you wanted to. but that's the easiest way I know to do it. If you're at the machine, what you would do is design the entire project, save the entire project, and then cut out one layer of it. Basically, use the select arrows to arrow through, select what you don't want, and press delete on the keyboard, on the keypad. Cut the first part, bring the whole design back up again, use the arrow key, to the selection arrow, to arrow through to the part that you didn't use. Did I say that right? Delete what you did use and keep what you didn't use. Let's see if I can get this out. So you basically, you can build the whole thing there, but you can save it and be able to go back in and pull up the exact thing in the exact spot. That way, if you wanted to do a cut or a draw operation, something that was different, then you could do that. I am working on the desktop version of Canvas Workspace. On the desktop version of Canvas Workspace, you can't set something to draw and cut. On the web application, you can set something to draw and cut. That's actually its default thing. So a workaround around that is if you want to draw something and cut it, if you copy and paste it in Canvas Workspace. So let's see here. Let's say I wanted to draw and cut, and I didn't want this inside. I wanted to make it a 3D object. What I can do is I've got that one set to draw. If I copy and paste, Control-C and Control-V, come in, grab them both, go to my edit menu and align them to where they're sitting on top, I can then pick the layer of the second one, this one, and change it to cut. So now I've got one piece. If I click on the second one, that's cut. The first one should be draw on the properties. So that's how you get the draw and the cut. Tina, if you go to canvasworkspace.com, the first time you open it, it will say, would you like to download the version? And unless you turned that off, it will allow you to download that for your desktop version. Okay. Yes, Amanda, you can use Canvas Workspace and PE Design together for sure. So, Patty, I'm glad you enjoyed that. So, yes, this morning, if you all didn't join Angela and I this morning, this is what we did. We created napkin wraps, and we drew and we cut. So you can draw and cut in the same thing. So Judy always draws in her seam allowances and then cuts her fabric. And my suggestion is always do your drawing first and then do your cutting. That way you have more material, whatever that material happens to be, whether it be paper or fabric, you have more material adhering to the mat itself. I'm talking to myself here. The more the more material that's secured to the mat that isn't cut out, the more secure your project will be. So if you'll always draw first, you'll have a much better result than if you cut and then draw, unless you want to tape. Tracy, check your speakers because it looks like everybody else is able to hear. Maybe you've got the sound turned off. I'm glad it was an aha moment for you. So, you know, that is it's nice to be able to do both in the same action. Okay, so the next question I had was from, I believe it was Nicole, and that was on PE Design and using PE Design and stippling. Okay, I'm going to clear my screen here, and what she was doing is setting up a custom hoop and trying to do a decorative fill. One thing I want to caution you about on that is, first of all, in PE Design 11, we're working in 11, 10 doesn't have the background fills. When you do a background fill, it automatically puts an outline around the outside edge, the outer edge of the project, regardless. You don't have an option. You can turn that off if you have a square, but it's still going to be there. because it's the traveling stitches around the outside edge. So even if I set up a custom hoop, my outer edge of that custom hoop is going to get an outline around it, which is not optimal. On the other hand, if you stipple, it doesn't do that. So stippling is a better option. Having said that, you are limited to 1,000 millimeters in width and height for your project. So that's about 39.4 inches, which is not a huge space. So, you know, think about it. This is about 40 inches or so. I know that this is a yard, so this is 36. If I go someplace, did y'all's grandmothers teach y'all how to do that? That was your yard. I guess you know, if you've got really long arms, maybe you have a yard and a half. Mine is a yard. So it's one of those that I would personally rather do the stippling than the decorative fill if I'm trying to do a complete quilt. So I'm going to show you how that works. You go into the hoop settings here and click on it. And down here at the bottom, you choose custom size. So you can see that I have maxed mine out here. I'm going to cancel and go into metric, and I will tell you why. Metric will give you as much full space as you can, and inches does not. So that is one of the things that I've learned over the years. Down here at the bottom, you choose your section size for hoop. I'm going to switch this back down to what it defaults to. I think it's like 90 by 90. It may be 100 by 100, but we're going to go with 90 by 90. All right, so that is so weird. Okay, 100 by 100. All right, so 100 by 100 is as small as I can go. You choose your section size for hoop. This is based on your biggest hoop that you have. You're generally not going to do something smaller than the largest hoop that you own when you're doing a split design, just simply because you want to get as much sewn at one time and you don't want to have to connect as often. So for me on the Luminaire, that would be this 272 by 408. If I'm on a Dream, that would be 240 by 360. If you were on a Quattro or if you're on a Stellaire, it would be the 230 by 350. If you're on a Quattro, or what is the equivalent of a Quattro these days? Like a 5200, depending on if you have it upgraded or not, that would be a 190 by 290. So, or a 170 by 290, just depending on whether you've upgraded to the 8 by 12 inch hoop or not. I'm going to go ahead and go with my largest one to kind of give you an idea. So that's my section size for my hoop. Then I go and decide how many hoopings I want to do. So the maximum that I can get, and I can't rotate this, just so you know, the maximum I can get is almost 4 across, not quite. It's 1,000. So you're going to notice I'm going to top out here at 1,000, and it's not going to go anymore. So it's like 3 and a little. You can go down from that and make it just 3 hoops, but just letting you know, you're going to tap out at the 3 and almost 4. And when you get, you'll notice as you add, it adds a red section. That's your split. I'm going to scroll up. And we'll keep going until we get to basically the top of this one, because the third one won't work. It'll just go part of it. So we're going to go with 766 by 786. That's the largest you can get, or not the largest. You can go 1,000 by 1,000, but you're going to have littles and little here and there. Now, if I drew myself a shape in here, actually, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to cheat here. We're going to just bring in a small little design Doesn't matter what it is. We're going to touch background fill and choose a decorative fill and click it. And we're going to not exclude the internal patterns. That way it will go underneath the design itself, and click OK. So here's a decorative fill. It's going to take it a few minutes to pop it on there, and then I'm going to delete my actual pattern. So now I know I've filled the maximum space that's possible there. Okay. So if we go up to our shapes menu, even though I have outline listed as not sewn, when I click off of everything, and this is what you are not doing, Nicole, is when you click off of everything and you start, and when you press play, you'll notice that it does do one section at a time. It's going to hop around because it's trying to path its way to where it can meet up. So this one's not going to be one totally connected design. Let's see if we can change to a different fill pattern. That may be one that I created. So let's see here if we go to a different fill pattern. Let's say we did this one. And let's not make it quite so tiny so we don't have to sit here all day and watch it sew. Okay, so now I'm going to click off of it. I want you to watch the outside edges though. So it's going to stitch around. Yeah, it's going to hop around just simply because it's trying to do a connector, which is not optimal. And you can speed this up to watch it sew, but I want you to watch it sew around the outside edge because it definitely will not leave that blank. You know, there it goes. At the outer edge, it will sew around it. So then that red section is your basting stitch to line up the next section. Your interior parts are not going to be done that. They're not going to have the outline going around them. The interiors will. All right. Did I say that wrong? I did say that. The exteriors will have it going around them. The interior patterns will not. And that is how that works. Okay. Deborah, what did I say that you do all the time? That forget what I was talking about. Older. Oh no, the measuring. Okay. Okay. So that's how that works, and that's really the explanation. But what I would do personally instead is do a stippling stitch. So if I click on my select tool, I've done the background fill. I can come in here and I can choose a stippling stitch. The stippling stitch does not put that outline around the outside edge. You can increase your spacing to where you don't have micro stippling. 5 is pretty micro, so I might go up to 15, maybe a little bit higher. And if we watch that one sew, let me click off of it. You'll notice that there's not going to be an outliner running around the outside edge. And what it's going to do is it's going to stipple in each hoop. It's going to put its basting stitch on, and then you would move and go to the next section. Now, they may not be totally connected. You may have some tie-offs because of the way it's traveling to get from one area to the other. It tries to do it with the least amount of jump stitches, but in order to connect up, you'll notice that you do have jumps on your edges. Boy, that is flash and funky. But that one would be your better choice for an all-over quilting pattern. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so what else was I going to do today? Well, let's see here. I was going to talk about textures and how they do different. Something we haven't talked about at all is My Design Center and why somebody might use My Design Center. I can tell you the reason I use it is because it gives you one totally connected outline. If it's touching, it will connect up. So that is one of the main reasons that I use it. It makes it easier if you're a beginning digitizer to be able to create something with a perfectly running outline stitch. Now, having said that, I may bring the outline in separately from the fills so that I can adjust fills, but I will do a combination. So I'm going to show you a little bit through my design center. I'm going to pick up a piece of artwork out of Canvas Workspace. I'll show you a cheater's way to do that. And then we'll take that into my design center. That way I don't have to have a piece of pristine artwork to begin with. So let's go over to Canvas Workspace. Let me find it. Here we are. Okay. And y'all know my favorite place in Canvas Workspace is the libraries, because that is where you can find tons of artwork without having to work really hard. I'm going to search and search for spring. I'm going to search for SP because it didn't bring up what I wanted. There we go. So spring scrapbook is the one that I wanted. And I wanted these little birds right here. And what I did was I deleted one of them and its wing, and then I used the other one. Well, my wing is behind, so I need to bring it to the front. So I'm going to right mouse click and choose Arrange, Bring to Front. Now my wing is where I need it to be, and I can rotate it into position. And then I'm going to take this whole kit and caboodle and make it bigger. Just pull it from the corners and you can make that bad boy bigger. Okay, so I've got my artwork. And what my plan was to take a snip of this. So basically take a screenshot of my bird. But I've got a grid here. How do I turn off that grid? Go to your artboard over on your right-hand side, and you can take off Show Grid. That gives us a nice pristine piece of artwork. And if you type in SNIP into your search bar, you'll get a snipping tool. This is what it looks like when it pops up. And I'm going to choose New, and I'm just going to draw around my little bird. There we go. So now I have something copied on my clipboard, and I'm ready to rock and roll. So let's go back over to Layout and Editing and go to Option and Design Center. This is what pops up. We want to work with an image file. So I'm going to touch the very first button. And that is usually when you hover over it, it tells you an image file. So when you hover over it, this is your clipboard. So we're going to pull in from the clipboard, and there's my piece of artwork, right? I'm going to touch Detect Outlines and then touch OK. Look there, it found my outlines. So we can click OK. And then next you have to go, this one is one that goes in stages. So I have to traverse from the first stage, which is the original image, to figure handle. And this is basically turning it into something as if you drew it yourself with editing nodes. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so I don't have the monster size bird, and click OK. There you go. Voila, I have an outline. Now, if I want to perfect my outline, I can click on it and click my Select Point tool, and I can manipulate and add points if I want to. If I don't want to, I don't have to. It all depends on how your artwork turns out. I'm going to zoom in here. You think my wing is backwards? Yes, you're right, it is. But guess what? I can fix that. All right, I can rotate this, and then I can flip it. There we go. Now, does that look better, Margaret? All right, yes, you're right. Okay, so I want an actual beak on this, though. So what I'm going to come in, I mean, I've got a point here, but I want an actual beak. So I'm going to come in and draw myself a line. I am not connecting it to anything right now. I'll just basically grab my input line tool, left clicked where I wanted that line to be. I'll undo that one so that I don't have to do it twice. And I'm going to grab my select point tool. Click on the line that I just drew, and then I'm going to click on the end point. I want it connected. So if I click on the end point, hold down my Alt key on my keyboard, you'll notice it turns into a hand. When the hand is over the top of another edit point, that edit point turns red. When it's red, let go of the mouse. You now have a connected outline. Do the same thing on the bottom. I have a connected outline. So now that's an area that I can fill with color and play with it all I want. All right, we're going to act like our image is perfect and go to sew settings. I don't really care what I put in here. I'm going to grab my region sew tool. I'm going to come in and choose a fill stitch. Let's pick some colors. Let's say we want blue for here. We want a dark blue for the wing. We want black for the eyeball. I'm going to change that to a satin stitch. And I'm going to make an orange beak with I'll leave that at a satin stitch too. I'm not going to worry about density. I'm not going to worry about undersewing. It automatically applies it because I'm actually going to change those properties of this one in layout and editing. Let's change to the line sew button and choose line sew all. And I want to choose not sewn. I'm going to put a dot around all of these outlines because I don't want them to sew right now. And I'm going to send this whole thing to layout and editing because I'm ready to rock and roll with it. Normally it comes in as stitches, and if it comes in as stitches, you cannot adjust it. If it comes in as an outline, any changes that I want to make, any different stitches that I want to add, I can do so in layout and editing. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to choose outlines and import it. So there's my bird. It's ready to go. Let's go back to my design center and let's turn that outline back on to a running stitch. I don't want the eyeball to stitch, but I do want my wing to stitch. I'm going to click on my region tool this time and I'm going to turn off all of my fills. And then I'm sending that to layout and editing. Since I want it one totally connected outline, I'm going to import this as stitches. Now I have a beautiful fill, an outline that's going to run all at one time without me having to path it myself. But those fill stitches, I can change to whatever I want to. My outline stitch, you'll notice, has a black dashed line around it, so it is in fixed format. All right, let me come up here and see if you have any questions so far. How are we doing? Did I totally lose you with this concept? I'm just trying to give you an idea of why you might use Design Center, because this is an easy way to get things moving. Any questions? Nope. Okay, let's go back over where we are. So now I'm going to grab my blue. And instead of a fill stitch, I'm going to choose a decorative fill stitch. I'm going to come up here and grab a different decorative fill. This is one that's built in. It's number, where is it? Here we go. I'm going to choose decorative fill pattern 30. Make it as small as I can make it, which is 10. And I'm going to rotate that. Now, that's not exactly what I want. Oh, I've got it going the wrong direction. I want it going to where it's kind of flowing with us. That's close to what I want, but I actually want it more dense. So how can I make that decorative fill more dense? This is as low as it will let me take that. I can't take it any lower than 10, but how can I make that one work better for me? And the reason I did this here is because decorative fills are not available in my design center. Well, I can come up to options and choose my programmable stitch creator. Let me select new, and we're just going to go open. And I will open up that pattern. Was it 29, I believe? No, 30. Pattern 30. I'm going to open that one up. Okay, so I'm going to select it all by drawing around it, and I'm going to shrink that into one corner. And I can copy and paste it, and then I can use my arrow key and move it over. I'm going to grab the whole kit and caboodle again, copy and paste it, and move that down. So now I have a whole new decorative fill that all matches up, right? Go up to your application button and let's choose Save As, and we're going to save this as A DF Fill 30-2. I put an A in front of it so I'll know it's mine. And I'm going to come back into layout and editing. Okay. So now, here we go. Let's grab our decorative fills. And there's my -2 one. I'm going to click OK. And why did you not give me what I want? 10. There we go. So you'll notice that one's more dense. I was able to get smaller. And what would be really cool is if you were doing this bird and when it was time to sew that part, just lay down a piece of heat transfer vinyl underneath it, or even foil or mylar. And that's a really cool way to get a different effect. It will shimmer through the different parts, but that's a way to get from one place to another and get a different texture to something. There's one other thing I wanted to really make sure I covered today, and that was how to add a different kind of texture. Okay, so let's see here. Princess, please be quiet. UPS must be here. My dog does not bark, but she is going to town right now. So I'm in layout and editing. But what if I want to have this be divided? I don't want it to have an outline through the center of it, but I want it to just kind of be divided. All right, I'm going to come and grab my Shapes tool. I'm going to grab my Open Curve Shape tool, and I'm just going to draw me a little curve here. Double click at the end. Now that's a big honking line. I'm going to change it back to a running stitch so you all will be able to see it. All right. We're going to click on the beak fill color, hold the control key down in our sewing order window, and click on that red line that we just drew, or the pink line, whatever color it is, and select them. We're going to go up to Stamp and Emboss and engrave them. And when I zoom out, you'll notice you got texture without having to do a whole lot of extra work. You don't have a big black line going down the middle of your beak, but you've got texture. So that's another way to do it. Something else you might do is you could grab your wing, and instead of a decorative fill, perhaps you choose a programmable fill stitch. There are tons of programmable fills. I'm going to change the color of that wing so you can see it a little bit better. Does that help? And you could choose a different programmable stitch. And a lot of the same decorative fills are in here as programmable stitches. If they are blue or red, they are going to emboss or engrave. The blue ones are going to emboss. Emboss has a B in it. Blue starts with B. The red ones are engraved. You dig a grave, and it's got an R in it, so they're red. That's how I remember things. But you could pick any of these textures and get something totally different looking just by playing with your different textures. Different item. And if you change the angle of that, it will totally change what you've done as well. So let's see if we can pick something else here. Give you all a couple of options to play with. Let's say we wanted a wavy line. There, look how cool that one is. Just by changing the different stitch. Okay, questions? So those were really the things that I wanted to show you today. There is one other that I could show you if you want me to. We can play and build a birdhouse for our bird if you would like to. That's a super easy one. There's actually there's a piece of artwork in your program that is a birdhouse that you could use, but you don't have to go there. We can do something much simpler. So yes, I can go over the beak again. All right, so let me undo back to the beak. All right, let's zoom in on it and grab our shapes tool and our curved line drawing tool. Left click where you want it to bend. You'll notice I'm not clicking a lot. There's going to be 3 clicks here. Once to start the line, once to bend the line, and double click at the end. So I've got my little line going there. I'm going to get in my sewing order window and grab the beak, scroll down and grab the line that I just drew, select them with the select patterns icon here, go up to stamp and emboss and choose engrave line. Then when you zoom out, you'll notice that it has been engraved in there. So that's how you do it. You could do the same thing. Let's move this to green again. Let's say you don't want a programmable fill in there. You want just texture. All right, let's come in here. And how about we grab our curved line drawing tool again and left click. Double click at the end. And I'm going to do a lot of different things here. This is going to be kind of cool, I think. I haven't done this one, but now this is going to take me more steps, just so you know. Because each line is its own separate thing. So we're going to grab the wing, come and expand actually, let me change this to show by color order, not have selected, so that it grabs each of my lines by themselves. So I grab the basic wing and the line. We're going to select them, go up, emboss, stamp, and engrave from line. Notice how it put that texture in there. You have to do it line by line though, gang. Go to the next one, select it, emboss, stamp, engraved line. The next one, it's a repetitive process. Engrave the line. But basically, we are taking a basic shape and making it our own, instead of leaving it to what the software what just the software could do. Just what it would do automatically. This is giving it just a little something extra to take your design to the next level. Instead of just being a plain Jane bird, you have a bird with texture. And as I said, once you get used to it, it's a very repetitive process. You can see all of my texture in there. Let's zoom out so you can see it. So now, instead of having a huge programmable fill stitch that would greatly increase my stitch count, all I've done is engrave those little lines in there, and that really makes a huge difference to it makes a huge difference to how it works. Deborah, it will not let you select but one line at a time. So that's the reason. I tried them all at one time, and it just does not like that. If you make it work, that's great, but I haven't been successful with making that work. So just that's my tip for you of the day. All right, so let's do a birdhouse to match our bird here while we're at it. I'm going to change to a different hoop size because we're in a small hoop right now. Let's go with a little bit bigger of one and rotate it. All right, let's grab everything here and group it so that it does not fall apart, because my outline is separate from the rest of it, okay? I'm going to grab my shapes tool, and we're going to grab the one that kind of looks like a birdhouse. And let's draw us a little birdhouse here. How big do we need our birdhouse to be? That'll be a pretty good size. Now, I don't want a programmable fill stitch. I'm just going to go with a plain Jane fill stitch. I need a roof for my house. Okay. I could go to the trouble of drawing the shape itself, but I'm going to cheat. We're going to copy and paste. So I'm going to right mouse click and copy, right mouse click and paste. And we just want a basic paste. We're going to shrink that in. Oops, nope, we're not going to shrink that in. I forgot, can't do that. We're going to change the color of it so you can see what we're doing. So we'll make this one gray. All right. Select tool, select point tool, and we will delete these 2 points. So I'm highlighted them by drawing around, and now I'm going to delete them. I kind of got the top of the house, but not quite. So I want to select my point. I'm going to add another point both places there. I'm going to put one right in the middle and take that up to the center. I'm almost to what I want. Now I'm going to take this, hold my shift key down because I want it to stay in its spot, and make it bigger. There you go. You now have a roof. We're going to draw a circle. And so that the bird has a way to get in the birdhouse, right? If I were to stitch it as it is, I'm going to center all this. So let's go arrange, center. If I were to stitch it like it is, let's look at it in stitch view and zoom in. Selected object, zoom. You'll notice that my green is underneath my gray here. That's not what I want it to do. And it's the same way for the roof. So I can take my roof and I can use my arrow keys and move it up. And then let's take this and move it down a little. So there you go. Now, and if you want to, you can adjust it a little bit more. But I want to get rid of the green from underneath my circle for my house. So I'm going to go down here in my sewing order window, and I do this in the sewing order window so I don't accidentally create a duplicate. I'm going to select the house, hold my control key down and select the circle or the oval. Click on the select patterns icon and go to the home tab. Modify overlap, set whole sewing. And you'll notice the center is now does not have green underneath it anymore. And you can either have the center sew or set it not to sew. I was going to have mine not sew, but you can have it sew if you want it to. Last thing I wanted to do on the actual birdhouse itself was to make a circle for them to stand on, the little pole. And let's change that to black. And you can center that if you select that entire design part there. Let's grab it, align and center, and you've got it centered. Fun things that you could, let's make us, we got to make a pole for it to stand on, right? So we've got a rectangle tool. Let's draw us a pole. You can make a skinny pole, a fat pole, whatever kind of pole you like. We do not want that to be a satin stitch, or we might want it to be. Depends on what kind of pole you want it to be. If you wanted a satin stitch, let's make it zero in the direction. And what could I do to split that satin? And the reason I'm saying it wouldn't be optimal for a satin is because I'm pretty sure that if I measured from one side of this to the other, let's go with our ruler tool here. If I measure from here to here and I look down at the bottom, I'm pretty sure, well, that's not bigger than 10, but it's pushing that envelope of how long of a stitch you want to stitch. If it happened to be 10 or more, you would definitely want to do something like what I'm about to do. But if it's 10 or less, if it's less than 10, like about 7, you don't necessarily have to do this. What did I do a minute ago? We use the curve line tool. Let's use the straight line tool this time. Hold the shift key down and click once and then double click at the end. I think it is set to not sewn, so let's turn it on. Let's make it a zigzag stitch so we can see it. And let's center those two on each other. Arrange, center. Now I've got them both selected. Stamp, and we can engrave the line. And let me change that color for you so you can see what that looks like. Let's go with brown and go to realistic view. And you'll notice I've got a little line going down the center of my pole. All right, y'all want to give this a little bit more something special? How much time do I have left? We're about done. Let's see. Instead of a plain Jane top, what could I do? I could come in here and change it from a fill stitch to a programmable fill stitch. There's the little wavy line. And if you want wavy lines, you can change that direction to 90 degrees or 88, somewhere. Actually, 90 degrees is what I want to do. And I'm changing it of the fill, not of the actual angle of the fill. You'll notice I get a totally different look just by changing that stitch type. You don't like, if that's not the one you want, let's click back on it again. You can pick a different one. What else do we have that might be fun? So depending on what you want to do, what you want to play with, you can do that. You could also engrave lines in your birdhouse. There are many other things that we could play with this and do to this, but that's a good start today. I'll finish up next week with some other things that we could have done to our birdhouse, but that kind of gives you an idea of what you can do, what you can play with. So let's see here. So glad you think I think you'll enjoy that engrave feature. Don't go nuts with it, but just here and there gives it just something a little special. I know I covered a lot of ground today, but they kind of built on each other. So it was one of those, let's see what we can do. What can we make out of a basic bird, and how can you make a birdhouse? What can you do with your basic shapes? What have you got? Yeah, the bird's too big to get in that house. So I would probably have to make a bigger birdhouse. You are correct. Or go back to the beginning, bring that in smaller. So instead of the import design at the size that it was, I could import it at a smaller size. You want to see that? Let me come back to my bird here. That bird might fit in that birdhouse, but we'll see. Let's go back over to Design Center and turn our stitches back on for our regions, because we don't care what they are. We just want them on. And I actually will leave them all the same color even. Let's turn off our line. And let's send that to layout and editing. In that import menu, you notice that it says 100%. Let's change that down to 50% and import it. So there's my bird at 50%. Come back. And I would have actually probably saved these as two separates, one with a fill and one with an outline. Let's turn off the regions. Send it again, this time as stitches, remember, at 50%. Oh, I shouldn't have moved that other one first. That's okay. Let's align and center and middle. There we go. So now they're sitting on top of each other. If we come in and look at that, zoom to selected. All right, down here at the bottom, I don't want it orange. I want it blue. I want that dark blue. And I want that black. I forgot to turn off the outline for the eyeball, but you get the concept. So you have the capability of bringing it in whatever size you want it to be. And you have the capability of changing the stitch types here to whatever stitch type you want them to be. So I don't necessarily have to do anything besides fill them in my design center. No, Lois, what it does is, let me come in here and ask that. What it does is it will stitch, and then it takes a short stitch, and then it goes, finishes the row of stitches. So it will stitch just like it normally does. It just is going to have a short stitch in there to create the engraving. You could kind of, if you convert it to either blocks or outline, and it depends on how it changes that into blocks or outline to be able to add that texture. And just so you know, one of the reasons I went to such depths of different things today is because we did reach our 2,000 goal. We are actually over 2,000 Facebook likes. I appreciate that. When I hit, let's see here. When I hit 2,500, I have a power pack for BES4 to give away. So tell all your friends that'll be our next giveaway. I have a power pack. I think it's power pack 1. I won't swear to that. So, that is my plan. Let's see here what else we've got. Oh yes, Judy, I have positive thoughts going your direction. It's always fun to set up a new computer. Ask me how I know. This one is totally new. So thanks, guys. You all made it happen. You all are part of this community. Like I said, my goal at the beginning of last year, basically around this time, around March, when we started all of the Facebook Lives, that hopefully I would get up to 2,000 viewers. I think I started with like 100, maybe 50. It was, I had totally ignored Facebook. I just don't feel like anybody has that I have that much interesting to say that anybody would want to come in here and talk to me. I look at a computer all day most of the time, so it doesn't seem to be that exciting for you all. So this last year has made me get out of my box and do something new. So glad you guys could join me today. I hope you all have a great weekend. My husband's birthday is tomorrow, so tomorrow I guess I'm taking the day off and doing birthday things for him. He has been trying to eat up all of the cookies in the house that I've had made and frozen. Those of y'all that took mine and Angela's cookie class, you will know what I'm talking about. Our towel class, you'll know the recipe I'm talking about. And yes, if you made them at teaspoon size, the funniest thing about that class is somebody said, boy, those are tiny cookies. I did not pay attention to the recipe because I've been making them for so long, it doesn't even faze me. My mother typed out the cookbook, and those are my cookies. But she typed up the cookbook, and it was all of the family recipes in this cookbook. And I just basically copied and pasted that out into BES4 and didn't pay a bit more attention to the man in the moon. You might want to use a teaspoon, a full teaspoon, not a half teaspoon, to make your cookies. Coupon codes this week. You've got LAT4, and same thing, DIG10. You'll have to give me till after this is over with so that I can go ahead and post those up. But those are your coupon codes. Angela and I have another class coming up, April, I think it's the 16th. So we should be posting that class soon. I think she'll have it for hers tomorrow, and I will kind of push that. The cookie video, that was a class Angela and I did. And if you want to purchase the replay, you are more than happy to do that. We've done embroidery 101 and embroidery 102. 103 is coming up next, and that's going to be caps. So that was what we were going to do. So that was you, yeah. Those are tiny cookies. When I went in there, it says teaspoon. Huh? Yeah, no, the half teaspoon is teeny tiny. I called Angela and just cracked up. So you guys have a great rest of the week. Hope everybody has a happy Passover, happy Easter, whatever you celebrate this week. Celebrate well. Love your family. Hug them tight. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.